send y'all spec. And hits that me, that's facts. I'm still coming for a play. When I hear something, then shut up, 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 shut up.
Today we're going to talk about obscure cards, but we got a much bigger list, so buckle up, grab a snack, grab a drink, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let's get into it. Up first, we've got Run for Your Lives, which is ran in 6,685 decks for 1 red and 1 blue at instant speed. Up to 2 target creatures each gain haste until end of turn. They can't be blocked this turn except by creatures with haste, and it has escape, 2 a blue and a red, exile 4 cards from your graveyard. I feel like this is not bad, okay? And I know some of you guys could be like, just run other blockable effects. Run that. Run this. Why not run this? Why not run this? Why not? Why not? Because you gotta live a little, buddy. I actually really like this if you're in like a Tamir deck, where you got like a bunch of big Tamir baddies you're trying to bash face with. Like Riku of 2 Reflections might dig this. Make a couple of the big boys you've copied unblockable. Be able to play this again to make them unblockable. Also be able to copy this to make more of your big boys unblockable with Riku. That's pretty cool. All in all, I think a pretty decent card. Again, Timir, any kind of like Timmy strategy that you have is it slotted into, which let's be honest, that's gonna be Tamir. Or if you have a commander that you want like guaranteed combat damage being dealt and you just need additional unblockable effects like Obeka, Splitter of Seconds, that could be pretty good. This just delivers unblockable for Obeka plus another creature you control. I like that a lot. My favorite use of this though is if you're in a goad list. This doesn't say your creatures, it's just 2 target creatures. So you can make 2 of your opponent's creatures that you have goaded unblockable, and you could probably take out players using this strategically enough. And with the escape, people are going to know you could do that again. They're going to be super afraid of this card. I actually think it's really decent. Especially over 6k decks, I think it definitely needs to be talked about. Speaking of cards that need talked about, Spike Shot Elder. Are you seriously telling me this is in 3,083 decks? This is a classic card, near and dear to my heart. I remember playing the pre-release for this set when it came out. I remember really, really liking this card, thinking it was really strong. I forgot about it. Came up on Scryfall. I actually really like this thing. For 1 and 2 red, we get a 1/1. We can pay 1 and 2 red to deal its power to any target. I don't know about you. With all the ways to proliferate that have been introduced in this game, this seems incredible because you can like throw a 1/1 counter on this guy and then just absolutely make it go sky high in its power. Like Shishiru the Shattered Blade. Oh man, that's really good in here. Throw one of your auras on this guy. Throw one of your equipments on this guy. Oh, guess what? Anything that's modified gets 1/1 counters during your turn. That seems like Spike Shot could be a game-ending card in that style of deck. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Plus, it's a goblin. Like, there's tons of goblin decks that run like Coat of Arms in them. Throw this in there. You'll have a giant goblin that can just deal giant goblin damage to people's faces. Ugh. Up next, we've got Herbal Poultice, which I think in a couple of niche case scenarios is actually really, really useful. It's ran in 7,032 decks. It is a 0-drop artifact that you can pay 3, tap it, crack it to regenerate target creature. Where I think this is really good, if you're in a storm deck where you're trying to play as many spells as possible and then follow that up with a storm spell to, win the game or get some really big value, I think this is really good because it costs 0, so it'll add to your storm count for free, and then provides protection for any of your important storm creatures, which a lot of those decks, the commander's really important, because it will be firing off along with your storm count thing going off. So this provides protection for your commander as well as adding to your storm count for free. I think that's actually pretty decent. Not bad. Maybe even something like Osgear to protect Osgear, get it back, and then have 2 more pieces of protection. I don't know. I think the card's actually pretty decent. Let's talk about another old school classic that's near and dear to my heart because I just have really fond memories of my cousin being really into like this era of vampires. Markov Blademaster. This thing's really good, actually. It's ran in 4,541 decks, which I think is criminal, being a 1 and 2 red double strike 1/1 that will get a 1/1 counter when it deals combat damage. Because it's got double strike, so you hit someone once with this thing, first double strike happens, it gets a 1/1 counter. Next double strike happens, they get another 1/1 counter. You end having a 3/3 double strike, and that person just took 3 damage, and then next turn you'll have a 4/4, then a 5/5 double strike. Not to even mention throwing this into like counter-centric decks, like if you're in an Animar deck where you've got stuff like all will be 1 in there, this guy will be getting tons of counters in there and actually become a serious threat, especially if you've got lands like Rogue's Passage, where you can give this card unblockable. I think this guy, is, I think in casual Commander, this is actually pretty good. I think this actually is kind of a haymaker. Not to even mention if you're in like a Boros or like a Mardu list, you then have access to stuff like Alesha who smiles at death or like Sun Titan to get back this little thing that becomes a huge threat later on. I don't know. I like this card. Again, much like all the cards on this list, I'm not 100%. I do think it's pretty good. Good enough to mention. Now, one of the weirdest picks for the list, we've got Gleam of Resistance. This comes in at 634 decks, and you know what? Obviously, there's a reason why, but I do think, again, in more of a casual play group, this is not a terrible card in certain decks. For 4 and a white, at instant speed, creatures you control get +1/+2 until end of turn, and you can untap those creatures. It's also got basic land cycling for 1 and a white. So, if you draw this early, you can just basic land cycle it to make sure you hit your 3rd or 4th land drop. But if you're drawing it late game, you can use it as a form of protection, giving 1/2 if you need it, combat-wise. Maybe on an attack you made or a block you're about to do. But where I think this is really good is if you're running a bunch of creatures that have like tap abilities, like if you're in a Rune the Hidden Realm where you have other stuff like the Mistveil Kithkin or something like that, I can't remember what it's called, with tap abilities to blink. Gleam isn't that bad just because you like now can swing with all those, play Gleam, untap all your things, give them +1/+2. I know there's plenty of cheaper ways to untap your full board at instant speed, but they don't have basic land cycling built into them, which I don't necessarily think makes this better or worse than any other cards. I do think it makes it worth mentioning. So there it is. Cleaver Riot is a 4 and a red sorcery that gives all your creatures double strike until end of turn. Again, if you're in a more casual play group, this could be a win con in like a token deck, maybe a Krenko deck, because giving your whole board double strike, that's nuts. Not to even mention if you have a lot of deals combat triggers like the Markov Blade Master we were talking about. Again, if you're on more of a budget and you like using more obscure cards, I think this is a great option. Let's move on to Flamekin Harbinger, and I know what you're typing already. Man, is this just an obscure red card list? No, there was an artifact. There's been a multicolor. All right, we should bring back stoning. Flamekin Harbinger is 1 red for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, you search your library for an elemental card and put it on the top of your library. This card's ran in 9,833 decks, which, yeah, I think it should be ran in more, though, because elementals, I don't know if you know this, a lot of really, really, really strong stuff that's ran in a lot of decks are elementals. Yarok, elemental. So if you're in like an ETB deck that runs that, you can tutor him up. Omnath, elemental. Muldrotha, elemental. Muldrifter, Shriekmaw, Avenger of Zendikar, elemental. Bane of Progress, elemental. Nyx Bloom Ancient, elemental. It's all elemental. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like if you looked through a couple of your decks, you might find that you run some elementals you really, really like seeing in your games, and you could throw this Flamekin in there to see it more. Let's move on and talk about one with the Kami. This enchantment aura. Whoa, my phone went all over the place. 1 moment. Hold on to your seats, okay? I don't want you falling over from this shock, okay? This card comes in at 13,147 decks. That's right, we have officially bumped up what's considered an obscure card. Why? Because scrolling through Scryfall, organized by EDH Rec Rank, we're really nearing in on the end of what to talk about on the under 10k field, as far as like casual and somewhat high power level casual decks are concerned. So we're bumping it up to 15k, okay? If it's in 15k or under decks, it can now be submitted for this list, because there's a ton of stuff that came in under 15k that I have never ever seen or played with, and if I haven't never seen or played with it and I've looked through Scryfall almost every day of my life for the last 2 years, it's probably safe to say that people that are even really into the game might not have seen them either. One with the Kami is gross. 3 and a green for an aura with flash. Throw it on a creature. Whenever that creature or another modified creature you control dies, make a 1/1 spirit for its power. Shishiro, again, this is disgusting in there. Holy. Stang Echo Warrior, make another copy of this thing, and then Stang's gonna leave, and then you get your thing, and you do the thing, and the spell does... This is such a good card. It really pisses me off. This genuinely makes me pissed that Arna doesn't have green in her color identity, because this would be such a bop in Arna, dude. Moving on, the card I most recommend you skipping, because I do not want to see this across from me ever. Let's talk about Mana Maze. For 1 in the blue, we get an enchantment. Players cannot cast spells that share a color with the last spell cast this turn. So if you cast a white spell, you can't follow it up with another white spell. You got to switch it up. Blue spell, green spell, black spell, red spell. No white spells. I said no white spell. Which makes this really, really good in artifact decks. If I'm not mistaken, they don't have a color, so this doesn't even affect it. So if you're in like an Urza deck, I don't understand why this isn't played a shit ton, for one. Or if you're just in a douchey ass stack, dude, go for it. Either way, shocks me that this is in 2,288 decks. How is that possible? It must have fallen through the cracks or something. I honestly am not sure. Card's gross. Also, you can do bullshit like if you're versing the mono blue player, play an opt at the beginning of their turn so they cannot play anything for the rest of their turn because the last spell was a blue spell unless they mix it up with like an artifact. White player, play a Path to Exile at the beginning of their turn. Gross. How am I the one discovering this gnarly of a card, dude? Hey guys, I got something to admit. It is an obscure red card list, I'm sorry. We've got Visions of Phyrexia coming up. I actually think this is pretty good. For 2 and 2 red, we get an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You may play it at the end of your turn. At the end of your turn, if you didn't play the card, exile it and create a tapped Power Stone. Again, if you're in an artifact-themed deck, I like this because you're going to be getting free card draw and free mana ramp because you're in an artifact deck. Power Stones, which is pretty good, but also in like an exile-based deck. Like if you're in Prosper Tombbound, this is just a second Prosper that's firing off and then gets built-in bonuses of being able to make power tokens, which can still be used to like activate abilities. So if you've got abilities in your deck to activate, you can still use it that way. Obviously, the Magic community has seen the value in this card. It's ran in 14,884 decks, so just below our line now. And it's a card I wanted to bring up to you guys because, one, the amount of decks it was in kind of shocked me a little bit. And then rereading it, I was like, I could see the vision. I think it's pretty good. Again, popped into my head. Osgear. This is really good in Osgear. You're getting free card draw, and you're getting free Power Stones that you can dump into Osgear to remake your artifacts that you can then use the Power Stones to activate your artifacts. Our next card is Sparring Regimen, which comes in at 2,778 decks. For 2 and a white, we get an enchantment. When Sparring Regimen enters the battlefield, we learn, which means we can get a lesson card from Exile the game, except that doesn't work in Commander. What we do instead is we draw a card, discard a card. So we get a built-in looting effect on a white card, which I think is like some weird tech that could be of use in some decks. But it's also got whenever we attack, put a 1/1 counter on target creature, untap it, which I think is pretty good. Of course, there's stuff like Reconnaissance where you're able to just untap stuff that didn't make it through or that gets blocked, which if that's the only reason you're using it, that card's way better. But this one does offer a 1/1 counter to that creature, so something like Arna might be able to use this because now we're giving Arna 1/1 counters and pseudo vigilance, and on a flying lifelinker, that's pretty good. Plus in that deck, putting 1/1 counters on any given creature that's attacking and untapping it is gonna be good with Arna. Plus draw a card, discard a card. I think that's pretty unique on a white card. Oh, sorry, I was mistaken. It's discard a card, then draw a card. This also works with stuff like Ishin, who doubles attack triggers. This is an attack trigger. Whenever you attack, do this, so you'll get 2 of these on your turn with Ishin. That's also not bad. Just a super interesting card. I remember seeing a ton of these at the Strixhaven pre-release. Rereading it, I think it's pretty decent, so maybe try it out. So moving on to Cerebral Vortex, I actually think this is an incredibly, 1, pretty decent form of card draw, and 2, could seriously like do work on the right, at the right table. For 1, a blue and a red, instant speed, target player draws 2 cards, then Cerebral Vortex deals damage to that player equal to the number of cards they drew this turn. So if someone's popping off on like a mean combo, drawing a ton of cards, you can just wait, oh, you drew 40? I'm going to throw a Cerebral into there just to let that sit there. I'll let that sit there. Even if someone drew like 7 cards in a turn and then you drop this, they take 9 damage to the dome. That's pretty good. I actually really like this from way back. This is a deep cut on the channel. The Parnesi group plug deck where you run all the group hug stuff, but it's got built-in backsides. Where it's got built-in backshots, but it's got built-in downsides. So this would be perfect. You're like offering someone card draw, but they'll lose damage equal to the amount of cards they drew. If this isn't already in that Parnesi deck list, I can barely remember that deck list. It should be. Moving on to my personal favorite card of this list, we've got Rampart Architect. For 3 and a green, we get a 3/4. Whenever this creature enters the battlefield or attacks, we get a 1/3 white wall with Defender. Love that. So I absolutely am obsessed with Titan abilities. If they can ETB and attack and trigger something, I'm all for that. The fact that it's a mid-range card, 4-drop, 3/4 does that. Love that. And we're not even done. Whenever a creature with Defender you control dies, you get to Rampant Growth. You just search for a basic land and put it into play tapped. So all these walls that you're just blocking with are mana ramping you, as well as being blockers, as well as triggering any creature ETBs you got, as well as being tokens to interact with any populate or token doubling effects you got. Nutter card. Did I mention that it's ran in 10,528 decks? That's absolutely criminal. Get this in a ton more decks. Absolute unit of a card. Actually really like this. Do I really need to mention? Throw it in your Arcades decks. Any green deck that's based on walls, this is going to be good in there. I'm lost in the maze. I'm down on Murders of Carlisle. Notoriously, I've said this a few times on the channel, I hate X drops, I actually don't think they're good. Like, they literally, you dump all your mana into them, you use all your resources for them, and then it's like, here's a big effect. Ooh, someone countered it, you wasted all your mana. Super sorry. I really, really like this one because even at low X cost, it's very good. Lost in the Maze comes in at 14,647 dex. It's X and 2 blue for an enchantment with flash. When Lost in the Maze enters the battlefield, tap X target creatures, put a stun counter on each of those creatures you don't control. Tapped creatures you control have hexproof. This thing is a defensive and offensive tool at the exact same time. You can tap opponent stuff, and if you do that, you put stun counters on them, and if you tap your own stuff, your tapped stuff gets hexproof. And guess what? You can just drop this for 2 blue, X being 0, and still give all your tapped stuff hexproof, which is incredibly powerful, if I'm being honest. I think this card's very, very good. Not to even mention it's an enchantment, so it works in enchantment deck, so if you're in like an enchantress list, this works in there. And past all of this, it is an enchantment, so it will continue to offer the effect of giving your tapped creatures hexproof. This all sounds very one-time usey. No, it sticks around and continues to give all your tapped stuff hexproof. Incredibly good card. Not to mention you can proliferate the stun counters. I could go on all day about this card. Very good. Pick one up. Love it. Let's talk about the funnest card on the list, Goblin Bomb. And I'm going to have to really be careful on reading this one because it's a weird-ass card. 1 and a red for an enchantment. During your upkeep, you flip a coin, then an opponent calls heads or tails. If you win the flip, put a fuse counter on this enchantment. If you lose the flip, remove a fuse counter from this enchantment. Remove 5 fuse counters from it, sacrifice it, deal 20 damage to target player. Oh. Again, proliferate. This is very doable. 5 fuse counters ain't shit. And then I can go ahead and shoot someone for 20 damage? Yeah, that seems very doable and very okay. Did I mention this card's ran in 4,959 decks? 20 to the dome. I get that theoretically with this card, I have to wait 5 turns for this to go off, and that's if I win all the flips. No, you have to win 1 flip, and then you proliferate, okay? This is going in the deck that runs a ton of proliferate stuff. What is that in red? I don't know. How about the new Kilo? He's proliferating. Hit a counter on this, start proliferating those counters, getting more and more and more counters. Not bad. Shit, put a Crushed Thumb in your deck. Make it so whenever you flip a coin, you flip 2, and you take the one you want instead if there is one. Yeah. Yeah. We're working with something here. Kind of a fun WinCon type vibe. We're working with it. Moving on from the funnest to the most mean card on the list, Head Games is a 3 and 2 black sorcery. Target opponent puts every single card in their hand on the top of their library and then gives that library to you. You search through it and get however many cards they put on top, and that's their new hand, and they shuffle their library. Oh, you got 13 cards, Mr. Blue Deck, with the Reliquary Tower? Yeah, give them to me. Here's 13 lands, big dog. The cards ran in 4,044 decks, which I think is pretty low for how powerful of an effect this is. Also, how uniquely annoying of an effect this is, and how annoying us Magic players love to be, because you guys love to be really fucking annoying. Well, I think you just love this card. Moving on to actually one of the first rares I ever pulled. I genuinely think this was the 3rd or 4th rare I ever got when I started playing Magic way back in 2006. Gleancrawler is 3 and 3 hybrid Dimir for a 6/6 trample. At the beginning of your end step, return to your hand all creature cards that were put into your graveyard this turn. This guy's ran in 3,488 decks, and I feel like that's really, really low, and I also feel like that's because his CMC is 6, which is definitely high, and it reads more like it should go in a Reanimator deck, and then when you read that it sends the creatures back to hand, you're kind of like, whatever. No, I think this just goes in a Jund Aristocrats deck, right? Like, where you just run a bunch of Blood Artist effects and then tons of stuff you're trying to sacrifice to those effects with stuff like Ashnod's Altar, and then you run Gleamcrawler, and every end step you just reset every creature you just sacked into your hand again to get to play them again next turn, to get to sack them again, to get all the triggers again. That's where I think this thing goes. So with something like Henzi Toolbox Tori, just the default list of him, this would be a really, really good card to add in there, because the cards you're giving dash with Henzi are going to sack themselves, but now you'll get the card draw from the sack, but they will also just return themselves back to your hand with Gleamcrawler. Hey, I'm old school. I like this in something like Shatter Gang Brothers, where you're just trying to crack your own stuff to get other people to sack their stuff. That's inherently a control-y kind of aristocrat Jund build, which I think this goes great into. You crack a creature, everyone sacks a creature, you get that creature back with Gleamcrawler to your hand. I think that's actually pretty decent. So this next card, I could totally see how you think it's not very good. I don't know why I'm convinced I'm really going to like it in my Arna Kennerud Sky Captain token modified deck, because let me give you the sales pitch, okay? Has this ever happened to you? You're in the token deck, all right? You got a bunch of 1/1s. You got a bunch of 2/2s. Couple of bigger boys. You swing. The opponent doesn't want to lose their creatures. Obviously, they're not going to throw their 4/4 into your 6/6. They're not going to throw their 3/3 into your 4/4. That ain't happening. What is going to happen is every single 2/2 is going to get thrown in front of your 1/1s. Every single 3/3 is going to get thrown in front of your 2/2s, and you're going to lose all your tokens so the opponent can negate as much of the damage as they can while keeping their board. It happens every single time. Every single time. It happens every single time. Well, not anymore. With Death Rattle Oni, all right? This card I am a huge fan of. For 6 and a black, we get a 5/4 with Flash that costs 2 less for each creature that died this turn. So what? We get a cheap, somewhat big body if a bunch of our tokens die? Yeah. Oh, did I mention it has an ETB that blows up anything that was dealt damage this turn? Damn, I love this card. I really like this card, because most of the time these type of effects are in like a green dragon. Is that what that thing was called? Like when it ETBs, it gives all your creatures death touch. Those kind of big, go wide, swingy death touch effects normally come in a way that people are like, oh, I know they have death touch, I'm just not going to block that way. Nah, Death Rattle Oni, Flash, baby. Super cheap, baby. 5/4. You're telling me you don't want a 1-drop 5/4 that blows up anything that took damage this turn? I've only talked about the using it during our turn side of it. This also applies any other turn. It costs 2 less for any creature that died this turn. So even on other players' turns where that exact same thing happens and there's a huge threat that needs to be taken care of and that big threat just blocked a token, oh, we're dropping the Uni. Oh, we're dropping the Uni. Oh, sorry, I was absolutely swooning over the card. It's ran in 2,632 decks. Up those numbers, the rookie numbers. Step your goddamn game up. Step your goddamn game up. All right, I'm done with it. Step your game up. Can we all agree that Murders at Karlov Manor was a bomb set that just keeps giving out gems? Soul Enervation is ran in 7,491 decks, and it's an absolute unit of a card. It's going in my Taval deck, so all you Taval players out there, get excited. We got some new tech here. For 3 and a black, we get a Flash Speed Enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, target creature gets -4/-4. Whenever one or more creature cards leaves our graveyard, each opponent loses 1 and we gain 1. Oh, word? Oh, word, we're doing the leave the graveyard, everyone loses 1 ping thing? I think Taval's absolutely okay with that. Also, an instant speed removal spell, we're always okay with that. An instant speed removal spell that gets around indestructible, we're always okay with that. An enchantment instant speed that gets around indestructible, a Nixthea is always okay with that. I absolutely love this card. I'm picking one up for Taval. I think this card's an absolute unit. Swapping out one of my other pieces of removal for this, immediately. Distended Mindbender is an 8-drop 5/5 with Emerge for 4 and 2 black, which now that I've started to build my Haragast deck, I've realized how powerful Emerge is as a ability, and I started looking up Emerge cards. This one's pretty good. And if you don't know what Emerge is, you can pay its Emerge cost, so in this it's 5 and 2 black, by sacking a creature and then subtracting that creature's mana cost from the Emerge cost. So we sack a 5-drop, this costs 2 black for a 5/5. It's also got, when you cast this spell, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose from it a non-land card with mana value 3 or less, and a card with mana value 4 or greater, and that player discards those cards. A theoretical 2 black 5/5 target player reveals their hand, and then you get to rip out their 2 best big and small spell with a built-in sack a creature when it comes into play. I could definitely see a lot of decks using this to a great value, again. And I ain't talking off-brand cereal. This card's ran in 2019 decks. Where does it go exactly? I'm not sure, if I'm being honest. This one's more of a, you might have had a thing pop into your head while I talked about this card and you want to put it in there. And if you got that idea, you got that thing, please drop a comment. Let me know where this would go exactly. I think it's a cool card. Wanted to talk about it. Not much past that. Moving on to Insatiable Frugivore. This is actually a bomb card. If you're in like the food token deck where you run plenty of creatures, This is a unit of a card. For 3 and a black, we get a 2/4. When it enters the battlefield, create a food token. Then you may exile 3 cards from your graveyard. If you do, repeat this process. So if you've got 12 cards in graveyard, exile your whole graveyard, you make 4 food tokens. And this just keeps scaling up with how big your graveyard is. You can also pay 3 and a black to sacrifice X food tokens and give your whole board +X/+O and menace. Even in like a token deck, this isn't bad just to throw in to give all your tokens menace and a huge buff. But if you're in the food deck, you could do like not even serious damage. You could end the game with this card. If you're in the Guillaume Master Chef deck that makes just mad foods and then you drop one of these, you're like, yeah, I'll go ahead and sack 12 tokens, give my board +12/+0 and menace. That's something slight. And in 7,039 decks, that's nuts to me. No pun intended, no squirrel pun intended. Absolutely almonds that this guy's not in enough decks. Definite squirrel pun intended. So Wirewood Hive Master comes in next. This is ran in 1,495 decks, which I think is pretty ridiculous. I'm not an elf ball player or even like an elf tribal player at all. I think this is definitely pretty good though. For 1 and a green, we get a 1/1 elf. Whenever another non-token elf enters under our control, we get a 1/1 insect. This is an insect. It's not an elf. It doesn't interact with elves. You're right. It does interact with some really powerful stuff in elves like Skull Clamp. You're just getting an insect that you can skull clamp onto every time you drop an elf. That seems fantastic. Then you get to keep your elves around for stuff that scales off the amount of elves you control, which is even better. Ashnod's Altar plugged into an elf deck, plugged in with Wirewood Hive Master as well. That seems really, really good. You can just mana ramp out more elves to get more insects to get more elves. That's absolutely insane. I think it's a fucking good card. Moving on to Sanctuary Blade, which is ran in 4,997 decks. This 2-mana equipment that equips for 3 gives equip creature +2/+0 and has protection from the chosen color because every time this attaches to a new creature, you get to choose a color. Now, is this fantastic? Sure, it's not as good as some of the Sword ofs cycle, but the fact you can like switch this around is actually pretty useful if your games tend to go long because you can throw this on where most of the removal's coming from, and then if you make it to a 1v1 situation, re-equip it to one of your threats, and then change it to the main color your only opponent left has been using to remove stuff. I think there's some interesting use cases for this. I really like it in Arna, not necessarily my version because I'm not going for the auras or the equipment route, but if you are going for the auras or equipment route, this could be really good to just get a bunch of Sanctuary Blades on your side of the board. Buff up a bunch of your stuff. It has protection from all different colors. Let's move on to another interesting card. I actually remember seeing this when we played the Conspiracy Draft when it came out. Flamerite is a red and a white for a 1/1. You can pay 1 and tap it to put a 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature token into play with Defender, or you can tap it to sacrifice a creature with Defender to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. The second part, meh, if someone plays something that's kind of strong early game, like an Esper Sentinel or something that has 1 power, you can snipe it with this if you need to. But honestly, where my brain went was Osgear. Again, works really well with Skull Clamp because these are 1/1s, so you can, attach Skull Clamp to your 1/1s. I don't know. Again, weird card. Not 100% sure where it goes. It's ran in 973 decks, so I guess a lot of you guys aren't sure where it goes. Let's try to figure it out. And then finally, to finish off our mega list of obscure cards, we've got such a doozy bomb, it's nuts. We got Wretched Anorid. Now, it might seem a little underwhelming. This 1 and a black 3/3 that makes us lose a life whenever a creature enters might seem bad. And that's because it is. We could run it in Blim and then give it to somebody else, which I really like. That's always fun. But we could also run it in the new Baiter list we were talking about because it reanimates creatures equal to the amount of life we lost this turn. This is actually a really useful piece in that deck. I'm actually going to throw this into that list. Or if you're in John Aronicus, if you want to be a literal scumbag, you can just goat it, give it to someone else. It can't be sacked, so they can't even get rid of the shit. And then it just has to be smacking other opponents while also forcing that opponent to be losing massive life whenever any creature ETBs. Not even to think if there's a token deck at the table. So sorry to that dude. It's in 6,768 decks, which makes me feel like it's probably in those lists that it should be in, but that doesn't mean that you don't have one of these lists and don't know about this card. Put it in there if you don't. Actually, saucy in those lists. So that wraps up our mega obscure list for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. A little bit more of a longer list for you guys. I've released so many compilation videos of older videos with just 4 or 5 things stapled onto the front. I wanted to give you guys more of a longer thing that you could sit through if you've already watched all my other stuff. Because again, huge support on the last videos, so thought you guys deserved a little extra oomph on this obscure video. But that's not it. We're also going to be doing a giveaway shortly on the channel, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell to be notified when we do that. If you want to show a little bit of additional support, you can check out the YouTube members page or the Patreon members link down below. It starts as low as $1 to support the channel, so maybe consider becoming a member. I'm going to stop yapping your ear off. I appreciate you guys checking me out. Peace.